Hello, friends. Let's read a book. Children of the Wind and Water. I think we're on the 5th story today. 5 stories about Native American children written by Stephen Krinsky, illustrated by James Watling. All right. Story 5. A Nootka Fisherman. Just a little side note about today's story. It does involve 2 hunting scenes of a whale and a salmon. So think about that before we watch it with our kiddos. It's a little bit more mature. The raindrops were tapping on the wooden roof above Slippery Eel's head. He barely noticed the sound, though. The rain almost never stopped this time of year. It was dark inside the lodge. Slippery Eel lit a ulican, an oily fish that burned with soft light. He sat down on a reed mat and began oiling a wooden shaft. It was part of a spear used to hunt whales. The oil helped protect the wood from the salty seawater. Slippery Eel ran his finger along the shaft. It was almost as tall as 2 men. He could barely lift it. Fishies. The end was tipped with a sharpened mussel shell. The shell was tied to the shaft with pine and gum and whale sinew. His father had told him all about the whale hunts. The men approached a whale from many canoes. The chief spear thrower approached first. He stood up in the canoe and plunged his spear into the whale's side. Then each hunter took his turn. The whale would try to dive or swim away, but it could not escape. The spearheads were made to break off when the whale struggled. They were each attached to long lines tied to inflated sealskins. Dragging them through the water exhausted the whale. Eventually the fight would end. Slippery Eel heard a shout. He looked outside where his brother and sister were playing with their friends. They were divided into 2 teams. One team guarded a buried clamshell at the top of a sand pile. The other team tried to capture it. Slippery Eel did not have time for games now. He finished oiling his father's spear and picked up a smaller one of his own. It was time to go fishing. Sometimes he caught fish with nets and hooks or even a pointed rake, but the spear was his favorite. So that looks like an image of them hunting the whales. Ooh. He made his way to a narrow wooden bridge over the river. Below it was a pole fence, a wall of sticks stretching from one riverbank to the other. Water and small fish could pass easily through the fence. Larger fish could not, but this didn't keep them from trying. Slippery Eel spotted a large fish trying to squirm through. He knelt down for a closer look. It was a salmon, a big one as long as his arm. Slippery Eel raised his spear. He watched closely, moving the spear in time with the fish. Then he threw it. The spear missed. The salmon's movements were hard to predict. It wriggled in unexpected ways. He tried again and missed again. The salmon was like a dancer darting through the water. One more try. He had it. The salmon did not give up easily, though. It thrashed about, pulling off the spearhead, but like larger whale spears, this spearhead was connected to the shaft by a line. The salmon could not escape. Still, the fish was strong. Back and forth it swam, pulling Slippery Eel along the bridge. Twice it almost yanked him right into the water. Finally, the salmon grew tired, and Slippery Eel pulled it out of the water. The salmon was the largest fish he had ever caught with a spear. Someday he would hunt whales too. Now, though, he would need all his strength just to get the salmon home. He and his family would have a feast tonight. Getting that salmon is survival for them. Oh, the end. And then we have a little glossary section. So this is a map showing the tribe territories, looks like. Tlingit, Nootka, Dakota, Huron, Muskogee. Oh, wow. Good to remember. The Muskogees were a diverse people of the Southeast. Their many villages shared a trading network that stretched east of the Mississippi River to the sea. The Dakotas were part of the Sioux family, whose tribe roamed the northern plains. The Dakotas relied on buffalo for many of their daily needs. Here's some pictures. The Hurons of the Great Lakes were skilled woodland dwellers who often moved with the seasons. They were as comfortable walking a trail on land as they were navigating a river. The Tlinkits lived in the Pacific Northwest, where winters were long and summers were short. They often traveled along the coast, sharing customs with both friends and enemies among other Pacific tribes. The Nootkas of the Pacific Northwest were one of the few seafaring Native American peoples and may have been the only tribe to hunt whales regularly. Wow. The end. So that was all 5 stories from Children of the Wind and Water, 5 stories about Native American children, written by Stephen Krinsky, illustrated by James Watling. And today it was the 5th story, the Nootka Fisherman.